What's up, everybody? This is American Idol Unaired. I'm your host, Bennett Shear, and today we have got another contestant from season 18. Say hey to Adam Curry. How you doing?
Doing well, man. How about yourself?
I'm great. It was fun chatting to you before. I think I I find myself reflecting on the fact that not being a musician, but meeting so many musicians is fun
Sure.
because I like to learn about things that I don't know, but we're all creatives, and it's like you don't have to necessarily make music to understand not the technical process of making music, but the reason you make music, the want to make music,
Sure.
right? And I see
Sure.
your setup there, and I think that I got so excited just seeing your face on the Zoom meeting. If you look at the lights on that keyboard, even just the faders on that monitor in your studio, it's like it's just so cool to know that you get to come and see that all the time, right?
Yeah, man. I'm very, very grateful to be doing the things that I get to do. And well here too. So actually I got this loft in Chicago like a month ago. So this is also really, really new for me too, to be in this space, to write and produce and make art. So I kind of feel the same way because it's still kind of fresh for me. So like it's inspiring to come into this room. And it's not done yet. There's still a lot of open wall space and a lot of things to be hung and fixed and redone. But I appreciate that greatly because yeah, like I love being in a space that is inspiring to make art and things that you care about. And so but to hear that, you know, from you who doesn't, make music, but still like you are in a creative field and are an artist in your own right. So I appreciate that, dude. Thank you so much. I think it's a fun space too.
I hope the American Idol viewers understand as well. There's fans of music. That's music is one of the most popular things in the world. There's a reason why arenas are filled with people who listen to music. But I hope that viewers understand the effort that goes into being musicians because they see these contestants walk out on stage and they don't understand what it takes not just to get on that show, the process that you guys go through, to just to audition, to go through all those producers and to make it on television and go through that months long process, but everything that it took before then, right? I mean, your story starts somewhere. I'm going to get your story and figure out how old you were when you wanted to become a musician and everything that you did, the work you put in. But you guys devote your lives to this. It is not easy. Uh, you do it because you love it, but everybody who goes on that show has that story and ups and downs, the good days, the hard days. So, I'm kind of rambling here. I want to get your story, but right? I mean, it's like I think it's just really important that people understand that you guys are all going through so much to give people this entertainment.
Sure. Yeah, man. I mean, that's like, you know, that is a lot of what is not seen, right? I feel like we can really focus on the people that we see in the limelight that just kind of seem to appear out of nowhere. It's like they weren't famous one day and then all of a sudden they're this huge icon. Um, and I think what people forget is that there's usually like 10 years behind that moment that they were able to break or able to get that one shot. Um, and it's confusing sometimes because it's art, so it's so emotional. It's so much of the heart that um, it can be seen as more, um, you know, hobby or more something that you do in your downtime or free time, not seen as like a real career. Um, but there are so many amazing ways that people manage to make a living off of doing music or art in general. But yeah, it does take a lot of work, man. It takes a lot of commitment and dedication and nights where you really aren't feeling inspired, but you have to push through, and days where you have that one win, but you have 10 different times you lost or 10 different moments that were hard, but it's that one win you had that one day that gets you through the next few months or the next year. And the hope is that you eventually get to do it, full time, or do it, as the means to provide for yourself or your spouse or your family, down the road. And, but yeah, it takes a lot of work, but just like anything in life, I feel like I'm supposed to work hard with any job that I have, So if I was an accountant, I would put in the long, long, hard hours to be the best accountant that I could be. I just happen to do music, and it just happens to drive me and inspire me to love people well, in the avenue of music, and also make something that can resonate with others that I love, and can just serve people that way through something that we can connect with so intimately, like a song. Um, but yeah, a lot of work though, and that's okay. I'm all for it, dude. I'm all for the hard work. So,
What inspires you in particular?
mm. I think the conversation that takes place after the music has happened, um, is what inspires me. Um, and in that statement, I mean being able to really invest in people or a specific person, that I might not be able or have gotten the opportunity to maybe meet or invest in if music wasn't the thing that put us in the same room. You know, um, I've played in a lot of bands. I've been doing music professionally uh, for 10 years. So um, ever since I turned 18, started to tour, started to work with bands and artists, as a guitar player, as a songwriter, and what eventually became my favorite moment in every show was actually when we would get off stage and we would get the chance to connect with however many people were there. I love performing. It's something I've always loved to do. I love playing music. Uh, but for me, it's a tool to get to the place where I can really get to know somebody. And sometimes learning a person's name is the biggest deal, you know. They came to the show because they loved music or they were just in town and they were trying to find something to do, but they stayed because they liked our band or liked a different band that was on the bill that night. But the intentionality, in a conversation with somebody when you're off the stage on the same ground with people just doing life together, at the bar or in, out back the venue or in front of the venue. Those became my favorite moments because I kind of saw some sparks happen in the eyes of these people who were just coming to hear some good music, but maybe weren't expecting like a conversation with somebody who was on stage doing it. And for me, being able to really love others with the tool and the thing that is music, that is a song, has become very much like that is the driving force behind everything that I do. It's just to be somebody who can connect with others, um, because people are amazing, and I learned so much from those moments, and hope that they can step away from a conversation with me or time spent with me just feeling better about themselves and who they are, knowing that they have worth and they have value. Um, but man, it starts with a song. It starts with going to see your favorite band. It starts with that first chord, but it doesn't end there. Um, I actually think the most important things happen off stage when the lights are turned down and the amps are turned off and the stage is left bare. Um, so much fun doing that. But to be able to like step off that and just be, me is great. And that's why I love doing, this type of stuff too, being able to produce people and kind of be in a room with them when the idea is just starting to form. Um, that stuff is really inspiring to me as well. Just to make something great, even if it's great for a day, and then after that one day, it's like this was a terrible idea, but in that one moment, like it was a great moment. That kind of stuff continues to drive me, even when I'm feeling low or feeling uninspired. I feel like those moments, they tend to present themselves at the right time to keep us going, which I'm thankful for.
You film Idol, you're with so many people, you
Mm-hmm.
get on stage, and then you get inspired, right? I'm sure that's how it worked. You got what you wanted, probably with the way it is on stage at a show. I mean, I don't know how the experience was for you as a contestant, but you had a lot of people that you could get inspired by, I'm sure, doing that show.
That was my favorite part, man, of my Idol experience. Was meeting everybody there, and it was so cool to see how supportive everybody was of each other, um, how encouraging everybody was. Like, I mean, it was my first time doing something like that, and I didn't know what to expect going in. I really didn't have any expectations going into that. I just knew that it was what I was supposed to do in that moment. And going to both my first audition, which was in Milwaukee, October's, yeah, October of 2019, and then getting the golden ticket. Of course, is just such a surreal experience. Seeing the Idol judges right in front of your face, like it's such a vivid, you know, that image is burned in my mind now because you see it on TV, but then when you're actually in it, it's just so bright and like, wow, that's crazy. So that was cool, but just meeting the people at that day was great. And then getting pushed through to Hollywood Week, which was like the first week of December that year. Yeah, I had no idea what to expect, but I was really both encouraged and surprised at like how little drama there was. At least with the people that I was with. Again, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the producers were going to try to bring out of us. Because it's TV, right? And you can't ignore that fact. So the fact that there's cameras and all that, like I didn't know what they were gonna ask of us, but my personal experience with it was cool. It was exhausting. It was probably one of the more exhausting weeks of my life, but it was a good time, because I got to make some friends that I still like keep in touch with, that I still write with, that I still, I'm we're still involved in each other's lives, because you go through something like that together, and every season, you know, I'm sure can say that like you bond, even if it's just for like the 1 or 2 or 3 days you're there. It's like you make some friends, and I'm very very grateful for all of them, and have been so inspired by so many of them, and seeing them go on to continue to make really great music and make waves in their worlds and build fan bases and build their art. That's really really cool, and it definitely inspires me to keep doing it still. you know and it's 2023, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah, no, it always amazes me because every contestant from every season that we have on this podcast talks about how they keep in touch. So It's like because it's kind of like and another analogy that people use is it's kind of like a music camp. And sometimes when you go to camp, you make friends that you may not necessarily keep in touch with for the sake of everyone having busy lives. But whether it's that you're all musicians or that it's this bond that you have from what it is like to be on a show like Idol, I don't know. In your own words, how would you put it? Like, why is it that after this 1 to 3 day experience, 5 years later, you are able to still keep in touch with these people, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a part of it is definitely just like the fact that we were all on American Idol together, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a show that even if you just watched one season of it when you were, small or whatever, like that's a show that everybody in some way, shape, or form has either, seen and loved and like, or just like has, they know who Katy Perry is, so it's like everybody can connect with American Idol in some way, especially if you are an artist. Because either you watched the show growing up and you absolutely love it, or you have a buddy who was on it, or you have a buddy whose second cousin, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of that thing where just being on American Idols together was, just cool, But I think what at, at least for me and for my, my time on it, um, again, like everybody was just so genuine. Everybody was just so themselves, and so willing and open to everybody else, And I don't know if my season was like special that way or if that's like a lot of people's experience, but I think it was just, dude, like the vibe was just there. Like the hang was good, because you're together, 12 hours at least a day in these little holding rooms, or you're watching, all of the other artists perform. Like you're constantly around each other and everybody's practicing, everybody's singing. And so you really get to know people relatively quick. Um, and you kind of find your groups. Like it is like camp. It's kind of like the first day of camp, right? Where like you're trying to figure out like, oh, who do I sit with at lunch? It is kind of like that. And for me, like the people that I guess I just naturally started to gravitate towards just kind of ended up being the pocket of homies that I kept that entire week. And for me being there for the full, you know, the full time. So, well, the full week that week for Hollywood week, like even just those like 6 days that I was there, like, you know, you really get to know them super well, and you really are for each other because you see them perform, and they kill, or you see them struggling backstage because they're tired because they have not slept in 3 days, or your voice is, on the edge of breaking, and you're just like, hey, I've got some tea, you know what I mean? Just like being able to be there for each other, in such a intense environment, I think is going to naturally just kind of bring people together. And for us, that, or for me, at least in my space, that was the case, which I'm very grateful for because they're good people, and who doesn't want to do life with good people?
Yeah, exactly. And even I'm curious in Milwaukee too, was it like that where you were able to have that sort of bond initially? Because in Hollywood Week, you all knew like we'd gone through this audition thing, and that's a bond in itself. Uh, it's so much about getting yourself through that door with the golden ticket. And I know that people have various experiences about their audition connection with others. Is it more of a personal experience versus a shared with others? What was your case?
Man, that day was such a long day, because I was one of the last three, I think, to audition that day. So I was there all day. I did connect with a handful of people, and their families too, you know, because there's like their parents are there or their wife is there, you know, uh let me think. Franklin Boone. I met Franklin Boone and his wife, and they had just had their first daughter, so she was just tiny, you know, and they had flown all the way out from the East Coast to be there that day. And Franklin was one of the first guys that I actually just talked with, spoke with. Um, Such a genuine heart, such an amazing guy, and what a talent, man! You know, just so gifted. So kind of like just you know to have him be like one of the first homies that I you know that I met was like that's that's pretty good, you know,
That's
because
what we're
he's
starting
super
off with,
cool.
and then yeah.
Yeah, because he's super cool. Um, what else? Ren Ren Patrick, I think is her last name. Uh, she was living in Houston. I remember that, and she was super sweet too. I know that she made it through. Because I saw her again in or during Hollywood Week. Um, Met her at the hotel because we were just like waiting to go shoot some stuff, and like, hey, I'm again. It's kind of like the first day of camp or school. It's like you find yourself at a random table. It's like, hey, I'm Adam. I guess you go here too. Okay, cool. You know, um, and that's kind of how it was that whole day. But from what I can remember specifically, like you know, the people I met that day were were so sweet. I just remember that I was there by myself the whole day because my wife had to work all day and my family was out of town. So I was there all day and I hadn't eaten a thing all day. And it was like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And like all I had was some water. And this really sweet family knew that I hadn't eaten all day. And so when they jumped out to get food for their daughter, they brought me back like a sandwich and some fries and stuff. And it was so kind. I don't remember who it was, but I would give them a big thank you shout out right now. Um, but yeah, man, like that whole day was definitely like more so like I just couldn't believe that I had been given the opportunity to like be there, you know, to even audition. Um, so a long day. It was a beautiful day. I remember that. Just the sun was out. It was like 65 degrees, right off the lake. Um, so that was great just to be outside like all day, and being able to talk and hang and do you know do the American Idol thing with a bunch of people who were kind of, I mean, who were there for the same purpose, you know.
And that's a pretty venue, isn't it? The Milwaukee audition place. I remember it's like a lot of interesting designs in that room, if I recall.
Yeah, it was the
Museum or something, art
I
museum.
think yeah the art museum I think, and we auditioned in front of the judges in like the main atrium. Um, just yeah, just absolutely beautiful place. So that made the day more fun because it was just like you can go hang outside, and that was cool.
You auditioned yourself completely? Did they recruit you for the show? How did that work?
Yeah, um, I was scouted, so I was playing a show downtown here. In Chicago, and the venue posted a little snippet of my set on their Instagram story, and like 2 days later, I get an email from a casting rep saying, "Hey, I found this story of you singing. Have you ever thought about auditioning for Idol?" And I was like, "This isn't real." You know, I'm like, because that was like a 12-second like story. You know what I mean? It was so short. They were like, no, it's real. You know, I think her name Amanda. I think it was her. Hit me up and it's like, no, if you ever thought about auditioning, we want to move forward if you want to. So they gave me a an invite only audition here in Chicago for the following week. So this was like early September 2019. Um, and I had never thought about doing the show. Like it wasn't something that I ever pursued because for me personally, like I never thought that my voice was something that could even like compete with the vocal talent that that show naturally presents to the world. You know, like there's some really just some powerhouse vocalists who were, you know, on the show. And like, you know, I had gotten, you know, friends and family like, you should audition for American Idol. And I'm like, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I'll play in bands and I'll do that whole thing. So it was never something that I ever wanted to do. But of course, when you get an email like that, it's like, oh well, why not? You know what I mean? I didn't have to stand in a line all day. So my audition was downtown Chicago. At a hotel. I auditioned for the first room of casting reps, and they sent me on to a second room, which and that's when I auditioned for all of the producers. And then after I sang my two songs, they were like, "So do you want to audition for the Idol judges?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So like 3 weeks later, I'm like in Wisconsin doing that. It was very quick. Like it didn't, you know, I didn't have time to really like process anything. I just kind of knew like, you know, if this opportunity falls in your lap, like as it did for me, because I know a lot of really talented friends who have auditioned like 30 times. Like I know a lot of guys who like really tried to be on this show. And so I know what it means for a lot of people. And I was just so honored to just be given the opportunity. It's like, well, I'm not going to say no, you know? So I'm going to at least give it a shot and see what'll happen. You know, I didn't really have uh, an expectation or any specific desire for it. I was just really happy to be there. And I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. But for me personally, that's just how it ended up playing out. Um, and then yeah, I got a yes all from every judge from all three of them. They were like, yeah, cool, man. I remember uh, Luke Bryan was the only one who gave me a little bit of pushback, saying that I would need to really be smart about my song choices, and he was absolutely right. Because I'm not a powerhouse vocalist, and I'd be competing against a lot of people who are. Um, and so my biggest strength or not would be like choosing the best song for my voice, or trying to do something that's not authentic to my, you know, sound. And he was right for sure. And but yeah, man, I got a yes from all three of them, you know, and uh, drove home that night, called my wife at like 3 a.m. It's like, you'll never guess what just happened to me. And yeah, man, it was a crazy, crazy day. Um, but the whole audition process for me was fairly simple and easy, uh, which is something that I'm very thankful for.
What did you sing in the room?
I sang Stand By Me as my cover, and then I had written a song called Voice that I sang for them specifically. Um, the producers thought that it'd be a good idea for me to bring the song that I had written. Like, cool. Either you're telling me that to help me, or you're telling me that so it makes a good statement on TV. You know what I mean? Like, it was just kind of like I didn't know what to really expect. So I was very open to being open to the feedback that they were providing me. So yeah, I sang those two. I sang my original song first, and Luke wanted me to sing "Stand by Me." So
I
yeah.
think your season kind of actually started sort of the antithesis of what your concern was about. Oh my gosh, I'm not this belter. I don't have this maybe powerhouse voice. But ever since American Idol came back on the new network, they have really showcased a lot more singer songwriter types. And maybe it's not necessarily about having the biggest range or, being able to sing these super high notes. The contestants that were on season 18 and then some of the contestants that have followed in future seasons, even a few, like, I don't know if you watched Alejandra the year before you, but a lot of the contestants, I feel like, including some of the people that I've talked to from your year on this show, this podcast, I think maybe they were going in that specific direction, that maybe, you were concerned about, oh, well, maybe I don't, fit that sort of powerhouse bill. But it's not all about having this huge range. And I think there's something to be said about, it was the time to finally showcase these artists who brought something different to the table, right? I mean, I don't know, from your perspective as a contestant, I'm sure that you probably picked up on the direction the show was going in.
Mm, yeah, for sure. Let me think. Alejandro's first audition was actually the audition that made me interested um, in the show again. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I hadn't watched Idol in forever, um, like forever. And then when I saw his first audition, like, it just went viral, right? So I watched it and was just like, man, this is so fresh, you know. And so I think a lot of people coming into my season, because my season was after his. A lot of people kind of were chasing that vibe because he did kind of pave the way, and I did learn very quickly when I went to Hollywood Week that they were really interested in people who were writing their own music, um, who had more experience doing music, um, people who were more artists, not so much just I can sing well, right? You know, I think for a long time it was like more catered towards like people who just could really, really sing, but really hadn't had experience in the music industry or the just that whole thing. But I feel like with my year, most of the people that I talked to had been doing music for a long time, and were presenting original music. And so I do feel like for me, after I learned all that, it's like, oh, okay, well then maybe I do kind of fit a pocket here, you know. But initially, that was not my thought at all. Um, I didn't even know what to think about what I could bring, you know. I just knew I'm just going to sing my song. If they like it, cool. um, but I am very thankful that show is definitely has started to lean more towards like they're looking for artists, um, and that's just cool, you know, because it's another platform that people can use to not only bring what they can do in the moment, but expose people to the work that they've been putting into their craft for years. Um, it's a very cool thing.
It is cool. You know, I'm not afraid to say that American Idol is my favorite show over The Voice or X Factor or AGT or any of the other competition shows. And I really think that that is why it's still the best show after all of these years, because even even the fact that they found it's almost like that's their when they left and then came back, maybe that's what clicked when Alejandro walked through that door. They're like, oh, this is what's going to keep us going. Is like we need to have artists. Not, I mean, they Adam Lambert, I think, is probably the clearest example where they had that magical moment. You know, somebody who could be on the stage at the American Music Awards and present themselves as somebody who already had the full package. But it's like, you know, we're going to be the show that tries to always give America original music to listen to and vote on. You know, it's like I think that that's even if you guys don't always get aired, the fact that you're in the same room with other people doing the same thing, look what it's done for you personally, professionally, meeting them. It's a networking opportunity. I think that's the other thing people don't realize at home. It's a networking opportunity. You're talking about being in the same room with what 200, 300 people, maybe not that many at Hollywood, but like you're you're meeting them. You're seeing other people that are putting in that same amount of work and almost being validated, probably being validated to say like, I've spent all this time trying to make it as a musician, and here we are. Idol isn't everything. It's a stepping stone. It's one part of our journey, but I'm sure it's powerful to be in that room with all those other people that are kind of, whether they're in your lane or they're just also doing something similar, or you all have maybe slightly different styles, or you write differently, or you perform differently, but you're all there being recognized for the talent that you have always had. And whether or not it gets seen on TV, somebody recognized it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Again, the best part of it for me was being with the other people, you know. Um, and it is cool to hear from a lot of guys who were on my season too, um, and from friends I've had who were on it in like the early 2010s, to kind of to pretty much hear the same thing, like yeah, I made friends, and it was cool to be around other people who were so so into the same things that I'm so into. I think it was the first time for me too at that point in my life where I was in oh, just a room crowded with people who were just obsessed with music, and songwriting, um, and not only were just constantly doing it, but who were just so good at it, like so good at it. And definitely, it was definitely an inspiring week for me. And I think about that week, and it's like, man, how cool that we were all in that room together for those six days, um, for that one moment in time. And now we're off doing our own things, and it's great. And because like doing music and life is bigger than being, on a TV show. Yet that for us is like was the common ground for us to like then learn about each other, be friends, become fans of each other, and go out and do our own things and continue to support each other.
You get to Hollywood Week, and this is where you see the competition. I think I'm sure that you would agree with basically everyone that says it didn't feel like a competition, but you sniff out essentially who else is there, and you see who else is on the show, and your competition, if you will. But what was it like the first time that you weren't just competing, or you weren't just standing in front of the judges, but now there's all these people in the crowd and you're in the line, you're doing the genre challenge to sort of really feel the music in the room, to be like, oh, I'm standing here amongst all these other people?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. I mean, a beautiful combination of exhilarating and nerve wracking, just to be able to stand on stage not only to perform in front of the judges again, but also this room full of just immensely talented folk. And at that point, we had gotten to kind of hang out and, get to know each other a bit. So there was already a little bit um, of a connection there too. And for me, that's a very that's a very cool thing to experience as a performer is if you know people there. It's like cool. I'm singing for some strangers, but I'm also singing for some people that I've at least had a conversation with, and that's cool. But yeah, man, that first challenge I remember very well, and yeah, I think everybody else who has done it would say the same thing. It was so cool to be up there doing it, but man, we were all nervous and scared, and because it's not just the room. It's like you're performing with this knowledge that like what you sing like might end up on TV for the world to see. Because at that point nobody knew who was airing or anything. It was anybody's game from our perspective. So I just remember going up and being like, I'm just gonna sing my song, man. And obviously I really hope they like it. But if I get sent home today, how cool that I got this far, and like that was just kind of my thought process the entire time, man. Like every time I was fortunate enough to get pushed through, it's like, wow, how cool. All right, I get to sing another song. Like that's literally all it came down to was I get to sing another song. And I love to sing songs. So hopefully they like it. And if not, that's cool, man. I've got an amazing wife and family back at home in Chicago that I get to go home and you know and see now. So that was truly my mentality the whole week, and was equal. I mean, I was shocked every time that I got pushed through, and being able to make it to the final round of Hollywood Week was just an immense honor to be counted into the group that ended that week, that got to perform all 3 times. Just so cool, just so cool.
Yeah, walk me through your song choices, and before you do that, I know you were aired. You said for like you told me for like 15 seconds. Which round was it?
Yeah, they aired my first round. So yeah, the genre challenge.
Audition or the genre? It was the genre challenge. Okay, so what was your song for genre challenge?
Somebody Else by the 1975 um, band that I've loved for a long time. The sad boy indie pop stuff that just is like, oh, that's good stuff, dude. Yeah, and then the duet challenge um, with Michael Toko, who is still a homie that I keep in touch with. We were like bros that week, man. He's such an amazing guy. Really, really great heart for people and for music. We just got along instantly. And he can write a really good song. He's got a good vibe. So we became friends. And then when yeah, that's the second challenge was introduced to us. I think it was the first year they did that challenge, um, the duet challenge specifically, because I remember Katy Perry saying like, "You think you know what's coming next, but we're gonna toss in uh, uh, a surprise or something."
Genre challenge was kind of new as well because it was like they didn't split it by genre. It was just like a line of 10, any genre
Oh,
whatsoever. So
okay.
that was new, and duets was new because they had group rounds before.
That's right. Yes. So yeah, for duet, we sang "Everybody Wants to Rule the World" um, by Tears for Fears, which is like one of my favorite songs ever written. I think it's one of the greatest songs ever written. And I think it was really cool that it was like on the list of songs that they were like, you can pick from this list. And I was like, oh, dude, this would be cool. And we wrote this cool part for it. Like, so doing that challenge with and Michael was so fun because um like me, like he is a guitar player. And so we got to really do some cool stuff together to kind of enhance that song and make it our own, which like we were super stoked on. And we go up and we do the song, and from what I remember it going well. Um, but he didn't make it through that round, but I did. So that was kind of like, oh, bro, no, you're going home, dude. I
Yeah.
was like, we were in it. It was so good. But man, he still, man, was just like so supportive and just go kill it, man, and keep me updated with how things are going. So I was texting him the whole week. Um, but yeah, so he went home. And I stayed, and I was like, man, all right, well, I get to sing another song. Cool, you know. And then it was around this time where my voice started to go. Um, this was probably the most physically exhausted I had ever been um, at that time. Because you know they keep you up late, they give you things to do, cameras to talk to, and it is intentionally to like make us tired, because when you're tired, you know that can start some drama, or that can make things, you know, it makes for some good TV, right? So I was really really tired. I don't do well running on no sleep. That's I really really need my sleep, and so my voice started to go the day before the third challenge. And so I'm just really trying to, you know, not talk as much as I, you know, can, but being in the room that they were all keeping us in, like it's just loud in there. So it's hard to talk with people at a normal speaking volume. So you're kind of, you are almost yelling at people, which isn't good for your voice. And then you go watch people perform and you want to hype them up. So you're like, woo, you're like cheering, but it's like, that's not good. So I was really, really intentional on like not talking too much. Still engaging with people, right? But trying my best to save what was left of my voice, because at that point it was on fumes. So a lot of throat coat, a lot of tea, you know, just things to keep it, you know, as prime as I could keep it. Um, and then for the third challenge, let's I sang I sang I sang I sang um, I sang that I sang "Circles" by Post Malone.
Oh wow. Was that your own, did you own your own arrangement? Like totally different, I'm
Um,
sure.
I so that was the hardest part about that whole thing, because I wanted to do a more stripped version of it, but we had the band there, and I actually was a bigger fan of the band than I was like anything else, because you know all of these cats had been playing in this group forever, and I knew who a lot of them were. So I was like, dude, like the opportunity to be able, you know, to be backed by that band. And after talking to a few of the producers, they advised me to use the band. I think in hindsight, I wish I didn't. I think I could have given a better performance if I wasn't so focused on trying to match the energy of the band. So we didn't do anything special. Like we did verse and chorus um, of the tune pretty much how it is on the record. Um, and at that point too, like I was familiar with the song, but it was really the only song that was on the list for that round that I think one fit my genre and two that I actually knew. I remember that round being really hard for me because I didn't know a lot of the songs that they gave us. And the ones that I did know, again, just didn't quite fit my voice. So that was the only one where I was like, I can at least hum the melody to this song. So I remember I missed a couple of lyrics in the chorus. I was also exhausted. So it was kind of a perfect storm where like my voice wasn't quite there. I missed some words. I think I did better than I thought I was going to do. I remember stepping off stage and saying, you know what, that was the best that I could have possibly done, and that's okay. You know what I mean? I had a feeling that I was not going to get pushed through. I think the only thing that gave me some hope was that like maybe they understood that I was tired. I mean, they could definitely see that. I mean, they definitely knew that all of us were tired, and maybe they wanted to see what I could do when I had time to rest and I could really, bring my best. But I watched a lot of other performances that day and just absolutely phenomenal, like absolutely killer. And so for me, like I was not up to the bar. You know what I mean? And uh, I had hit as far as I could go, and I got cut that night, and I agree with their choice. Um, I think I could have still done well. I could have sang better. I could have put on a better performance if I had, time to rest and like learn this song super well. I think I could have done fine if they had kept me going, but at the same time, I did think, you know what? These artists are better than I am, and they deserve to go on. And some incredible people with amazing stories and amazing hearts and a really beautiful song to sing. And I made it this far, so I can't be upset, you know. So it ended that night for me with again like with the group that I got cut with, man. Like some people that I'm like, you're here? No way. Like you shouldn't be here. Like there's so many people. And I know that a lot of people think that same thing, right? Like, they see the people who get cut and like, how did you get cut? You know what I mean? And, I think at the end of the day, as it comes to a show like Idol, um, it's still TV, right? So they have the reasons for doing the things they do. The the art is real and all of the people are real, but Idol's not real. Um, so they have things that they want to go. They have arcs that they are trying to tell. Um, and that's cool. That's cool if I was not a part of that. The part of the continuation of that cast that year. Because the people who were 100% like deserved to be there and was honored to be counted like in a group with them at one point.
So it's one thing to, accept the decision of not being chosen. Does that go hand in hand with how you felt when you weren't aired, or is that a whole different emotion?
You know, well,
Other than the 15 seconds, but
it,
we didn't really get to know
yeah, yeah,
you.
you know, it's interesting because yeah, I mean, I I was aired. You know what I mean? Like there was, you know, a short stint of my first challenge, and it was enough to showcase a bit of who I was, and um and enough to like gain a little bit more of like a following, right? It didn't last long, but like it was like I still aired. And so I don't think from from a standpoint of like of some of my friends whose faces didn't even get shown. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I can speak into that so much from the like not airing standpoint, because I did get to kind of bask in that for that day, you know. I got texts and phone calls, and you know, I got comments and all that fun stuff that doesn't make like that doesn't like those things, they don't define who I am. But as an artist, like that's always nice to hear good feedback, right? And so I don't think it really had any different kind of effect on me because my name popped up on, you know, on TV, and you heard my voice for 10 seconds. You know what I mean? And no, like they didn't build an arc around me. I thought that they might, uh, because of my speech, but at the same time, I was actually pretty fluent that week, so I didn't stutter as much as I thought that I would have. So maybe they were like, well, and I say that only because a lot of what the producers were asking me during the week was actually a lot about my speech and like how that affects me vocally and all you know, all of these things. So I thought maybe they would make a little arc of that for like one episode, but I knew that I got cut at the end of Hollywood Week. So I knew that like they weren't going to build this massive story around me, right? So I did kind of have the expectation of like, you know, I probably won't get a story arc. I probably won't get all of that. I might air like one moment or two, and so I'm very honored and happy that I did get aired for that very short time. That was cool. And seeing all the people who did air, you know, was even cooler because friends that I had made like had arcs and they got to really tell their story. And for me, that was so much fun to watch that year. And then to see, I mean, that was um, COVID, you know, too. So to see kind of how all of my friends like dove into American Idol um, COVID style, you know, and be able to do it as well and professionally as they did was inspiring too. Um, and then and to still be like talking to them during the week when they were still like filming and like doing that whole thing.
From
Uh,
home.
yeah, from home, right? Like they're like kicking it in their living room while the crew is getting cameras
Yeah.
and things set up so they can perform their song for the judges via Zoom. You know, it's like, man, how I mean, how crazy that all turned out to be, but how it didn't seem to really phase any of them. I mean, I'm sure it did, and I know that it took away a lot of the like the bigger experience of being on a show like that. Um, but they owned it, man. They freaking owned it and did a really, I think, a great job. So in terms of not airing or you know that thing, no, like it didn't really change how I felt about anything. Like again, man, I was just honored that they put my name on the screen for a moment, you know. Not a lot of missed expectations there. Um, just a lot of gratitude.
And I think also it's important to recognize that all of you guys, even to have gotten there in the first place, is so cool, right? Because you beat out so many people just to be on that stage.
Yeah, yeah, that was humbling for sure. Um, and like not saying that, you know, like not having any doubt in my gifts or my talent, you know, like still being confident in what I can bring, but knowing that like there are so many incredible artists who also deserve to be here who were told no, for whatever reason. Um, but but we were all there during that time, and we just really got to enjoy that, no matter how long it lasted. I definitely feel good about the time we spent. I think it was spent well, uh, just getting to know each other and being a part of something cool.
Well, it's still wild to think that this was, I guess, what, a little over 3 years ago that you filmed this, and you still have such a vivid memory.
Yeah, you know, well, it's funny because a lot of what you've asked me to kind of explain are really the only things that I remember.
Well, I guess
Like,
we're lucky then. Yeah, I mean, I was impressed though because I'm like, it's so precise. Like remembering that the family offered you a sandwich, and then
oh, dude, I was
just the
so
different.
hungry, dog.
Of course, yeah, yeah. How can you forget
I was
that?
dying, homie. Yeah, I don't remember a lot of the downtime. I just remember sitting in a big room.
But the hours are so long, so I don't
Totally.
blame you for that. Give me the rundown of just since then, because so much has happened obviously in the world. Elephant in the room is you were on the COVID season. So what was it like to adjust as an artist, as a human, and then to kind of, I guess, ideally bounce back from that? Because I think things have probably been better since you've been able to play more shows in person. And what's been going on for you post Idol?
Yeah, dude. Well, one, you know, COVID was very real and hard for everybody, no matter what you were doing, you know. Uh, and so I think it is appropriate to say that for sure, to know that we were all struggling,
Yeah.
from kids to adults to students to, you know, to the elderly. Like it affected everybody. Um, but in terms of me personally, like with music and just kind of life, it was like a lot of people, one of the hardest years creatively, in the sense that, um, you know, we would be making music and we would be, you know, even if we were having times where we were writing really good stuff or being able to work with a lot of people, it still had this underlying feeling of like, yeah, but like, are we ever gonna like be able to do anything with this again? You know, it didn't stop us from making music, but it was definitely this very sobering thought that like this could be the new reality. Like, are we going to be able to play shows again? Are we going to be able to really like connect in person? We just didn't know. Like now, of course, it's like, well, if you had waited 2 years, 3 years, but it's like now it's like obviously things have opened up and we've learned to live with COVID, you know. But it was really challenging that first year because everything just kind of seemed to be taken away. And it was challenging for me in the sense that it really made me realize where my heart was and what was important to me, where my 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 priorities, like, you know, lied. who I was, kind of, all the questions that we like asked each other when our favorite things were taken away from us, when it's like, will I ever be able to make a career out of playing music again? Or am I ever going to be able to walk outside and have a good interaction with another human being again? It's those things that really made me and a lot of people question, like, what's important to me and who am I? And I think I came to the place through a lot of struggle and a lot of like really angry moments where it's like, man, my identity is not wrapped up in the amount of music I put out or how many shows I play or if I get signed as an artist or if I have streams on Spotify or if I get this tour or if I live here or there. Like, that's not who I am. It's what I get to do, but it's not who I am. And a lot of moments when I struggled with that, I would think that would have inspired me to write and do things, but it actually made me want to do the opposite. Like, I think I need to take a break because I need to adjust my head and align my heart to where it needs to be. So I actually took a break for a little bit of that year. Didn't write, didn't play, and it ended up being a really healing time because I saw what life looked like completely without it, and it made it more beautiful to me. Um, and as I stepped back into it, more opportunities came up, and I started to meet more people online because it evened the playing field for all of us, right? Like, there were no more like, you're in this pocket, you're in this pocket. It's like we all are so desperate to like work with people and make bangers. So I found you on Instagram, and I like the way I I like the production in your songs, or I like your voice. Like, let's collaborate. And so many people that I continue to work with today, I met um, through COVID. Um, Ryan is one guy. Um, uh, Argast is one guy that I met through COVID, and we're both from Chicago. You know what I mean? I I I know that you had him him on your podcast too, and it's like, I don't think Ryan and I would have ever became friends if he hadn't hit me up on Instagram being like, "Hey, I checked out your music and I like your stuff. Let's write together." You know what I mean? And we're from Chicago. Like, we're both in the same city. Um, and that happened with so many other people. Um, and it was really, really cool to be able to experience a, a sense of community in that way. Even though when we met up with people, like, we were wearing masks and, it didn't feel normal, but we took advantage of being able to be together. Or a lot of Zoom rights, man. Like, so many Zoom rights. Um, and then as the world started to open up again, um, we just really took advantage and ran with it, like being able to play live music again. The first proper show that I played post COVID wasn't until like later, like late June 2021. So a year and a half, pretty much, since we went into lockdown, at least here. Like March, what was it? March 13th, I think, was the first day for us. Um, so a year and a half later ish, the first time to like come back and play like a show. and how cool that was and how packed it was and how much fun everybody had, and like how it'd be like, hey, there's people.
Right.
And it was great,
Yeah.
So I'm very, very thankful that we have learned to like still be aware of, you know, of each other and COVID, and like be responsible, but learn to live with it and still like do life together. Um, and yeah, for us who get to make art, like be able to tour again, and that is what I'm doing now, man. So I'm very, very grateful to be. I mean, I I tour and um, I produce. Like that is what I do full time. So I I play guitar and keys um, and the mandolin for a country artist named Brantley 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 Gilbert.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, man, started in his band last fall, and it's been such an honor to be a part of that camp. Um, Amazing guys, amazing crew. Um, love Brantley, love the band. Um, so anytime I'm not on the road um, touring with them, I'm in this room, and I get the chance to produce for guys here. Um, a couple people in St. Louis and Nashville. Um, a lot of pop music, church music, folk music. Just being able to make a good song with some really talented people, and I am able to support me and my wife, and who is also an incredible songwriter and vocalist and artist too. So we get to do a lot of things together, which is beautiful. She's just amazing, and I love her to death. Um, so man, like it seemed like things really started to open up for me in that sense, and really um, being able to see a lot of the people that I was on Idol with kind of step into their own, scenes too, and make waves, and push through COVID and come out of it stronger, doing more, starting to tour more, hits on the radio, Spotify streaming through the roof, like, all the things that like are nice to have. It doesn't mean that their art is better than than mine, or that or anything else, but it's just like those are cool things to see. You're making music and people are listening to it. So to have those wins, and to see dear friends kind of step into new seasons where they are just killing it, and maintaining like their character and integrity, like still being themselves, is just awesome. And I think, I don't know if it would have played out the same way if COVID hadn't happened in certain ways.
We're gonna play your song "Oxygen," and I'm gonna ask you what it's about. But just based off the title alone, I listened to it, and the first thing that I thought was when I saw that it was a song called "Oxygen" and it came out in 2020 of your project socials. I'm like, okay, in 2020, it's called "Oxygen." Is it about wanting to maybe literally take off the mask, but figuratively wanting to sort of breathe in the life of what it's like to have normalcy again? I don't know if I'm in the ballpark or not, but again, you're the artist, so
Sure, dude. That is, I've never heard that interpretation. Um, if that is yours, that's beautiful. um, that's cool. For me personally, so that song was written and recorded and set to be released before COVID.
Okay.
So that song came out like February of 2020. So uh COVID was a thing, but it hadn't
Right.
reached the heights that it did in March, you know? So uh but now that you say that, maybe, man.
Maybe you were
Maybe
predicting it
that's
without
part of
knowing
it.
it, or who knows? I mean,
Maybe.
talk a little more about your sort of process with writing that and wanting to put that song out into the world.
Sure, man. Well, um s- um s- socials was the project that I started um shortly I um before I started the American Idol process. So I had already auditioned for the judges. Um and I was in a band that was doing stuff here in Chicago, and it just didn't really do anything. Great guys, but the band just kind of dissolved. Um, and so really didn't like. I didn't make any plans to start a new project. I went to Nashville, and my friend my friend Brendan, who's an amazing um, audio engineer um, um, and producer. I was hanging out with him at his studio one night, and he's the one that brought the original keys part for that song. So he showed me this like dun 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 dun, and we just started to write to it. And by the end of the night, we had the song written. So it was one of those moments where it was just like, wow, this just came together super quick. And so again, I had just stepped out of this band, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with music at that point. Maybe I would go back on the road and play for people again. Maybe I would start a solo project. But then when I started doing the stuff for Idol, I was like, well, maybe it would be a good idea to have some new music that I can kind of call like my own stuff, just in case, like, let's see what happens with this. And so, and so Oxygen came out of this time in my life where where I kind of saw like maybe too much of a good thing can make you forget about when things weren't so good, and you saw life from a different kind of perspective. Um, so being aware that things are good, that you have a lot of life and joy, um, but you get used to that, and things become kind of normal in that, and you can forget that when things were difficult, you saw the world a little differently, and maybe even a little more from a lens that was more authentic. Um, that was kind of the initial idea with that song. I had actually had the I had a section of the lyrics written already, actually, before we started to put those words to that song. It was just like on my phone. It was just an idea I had one day. And I was like, this might work with this. And then the song after that, like, I think I had the first verse written. And then after we put those words to that tune and kind of came up with the vibe, then the song really just like wrote itself. Um, and so I think that song, in short, is about perspective and about how we all long for good things and to be loved by something or known by someone or something. Uh, and sometimes we can forget that, yeah, things may be great or bad, but don't forget to see the world through the most authentic pair of eyes you have. And yeah, and kind of sit in that space. Um, that's kind of where that song was birthed from. And then, you know, I think I like a lot of things that I write because as I write them and I sit with them for years, more of why I wrote them starts to kind of come up. You know what I mean? Starts to kind of bring itself to the surface. You know, there's a lot of songs that I've written that I think it means one thing the moment that I write it, and then I hear it a year later, and it's like, oh no, that actually means this. And I think Oxygen is one of those songs for me that I'm still kind of actually discovering what that song means. Um, I know how I hear it, but even now, like it being, that song came out, yeah, in February, so 2023. Now, um, being able to hear the song now, a new image and new ideas come to my head and heart now. It's like, oh, well, maybe it actually means this. um, I think that's something cool about art is that I find oftentimes art is not created, it's just found. Like was something that was always there that you just needed to like wipe off all of the dirt and dust to like see it, you know what I mean? And Oxygen for me at least is one of those songs where I think I'm still uncovering some of the dirt that's on top of it. So
I think that's probably something you could say about any material, right? Like you never know if at any point in your life a song that you've written is going to teach you something years down the line. Just like any of us who aren't performers can learn things about ourselves with whatever we do. We think we know one thing about something, and then you know, I think the younger we are, the more we think we know everything, and the older we get, the more we realize we don't know shit. Right? Like that's
fair enough, dog. 100%.
and it's beautiful to be able to be an artist because you spend your time analyzing things and it helps you to figure out the world, and it kind of gives you the head start to figure these things out and helps other people by spreading your message and teaching them what you've learned through music, which is what you love. So it's fun.
Totally. Yes, 100%, man. I think I write songs to try to answer the hard questions in life because you're able to really process and say things in a song that you wouldn't necessarily be allowed to just like speak or say. Like you are, it gives you the okay to really try to dissect what it means to be alive, or like it means to struggle with this or be happy in this, or you know what I mean, like it's just a different avenue. And for me, it has really helped me come face to face with some of the harder things, uh, and find beauty in them, but still acknowledge like, you know, sometimes the world is really broken, and sometimes there's a lot of hurt, but I do believe that there's still the the light in that to be discovered and then to be used, um, in a good way. And sometimes that can be through just something as simple as a melody. You know what I mean? It continues to blow my mind and surprise me time and time again. And it's a gift, man. It's a gift that is really, really cool. And that can continue to connect people and show us that maybe we have more in common than we think we do. And I think when we start there, in the common ground, that's when we'll see a lot of good good things changing.
Oh yeah, and you guys as artists, you bring a lot of light to this world, and I think it's always yin and yang. There's always light and dark, but you guys bring the light because you have these messages to share, and whether it's a confusing time or a dark time, you know, you know how to tell people it's going to be okay, because whether or not you're feeling it, you could kind of take in everything that might be making you feel a certain way, but you figure out how to write that song that can connect with others and make them feel hope, make them feel good, and remind them that there is stuff to look forward to every day. There is the sun, and if it rains today, it's going to be sunny the next day. I mean, I know that's the whole cliche about, like, there's always the rainbow after the storm, but it's true. You guys, you do bring light to the world.
Thank you, man. I'm very honored to be somebody who gets the opportunity to do that in the context of songs. I'm very, very thankful to be able to do that.
You mentioned connection. How can people connect with you so that they don't miss out on any new stuff? And by the way, if you want to kind of mention any things that people can look out for musically, other projects or other shows, and where to follow you so they don't miss it.
Honestly, dude, Instagram is kind of
It's
the
all about the
main.
IG.
Yeah, man. I mean, I have a TikTok. I've got all of that, but Instagram is kind of where I sit the most in. So Adam underscore C underscore Curry, Curry. You can find everything that you need to know about me, from a personal space to my family to the music that I play to shows that I do with Brantley to social stuff to just me sitting in my studio playing my guitar. Like, you can find me there and hit me up, DM me. Happy to make new friends and connect with whoever wants to. I think one of the beautiful things about the social media world is that if used right and properly, man, it can really do some good with putting us in touch with new friends. And that's been my favorite part about it. It comes in its own territory of struggle too, which is an entirely different conversation. But in terms of what I would love to use it for, really just to keep up and to make new friends. So hit me up. I'd be happy to be your friend.
Likewise, dude. Adam, thank you so much for being a part of American Idol Unaired. And now we're going to play Oxygen.
Bennett, thank you, man, for having me. Again, I was very, very honored seeing all of the friends that I have who have also been on this podcast. So thank you so much, brother.
Pen, paper, mental note. Oh, I know how this ends. Right now the scapegoat, just to go back again. You gave me a reason, but I can't forget sometimes. This is my whole world. Welcome to my world. I don't want another mistake. With these feelings I know you'll find. All this oxygen will take my breath away, and I know you're behind it this time. And I'm still running away, but I'm wanting to stay in the place that I know you'll find. All this oxygen will take my breath away, and I know you're behind it this time. Find myself in what you're doing. You make it all too real. When you give me a reason to feel. Then you show me how to love, but I still forget sometimes. Oh, this is my whole world. This is my whole world. I don't want another mistake. With these feelings I know you'll find. All this oxygen will take my breath away, and I know you're behind it this time. And I'm still running away, but I'm take my breath away, and I know you're mine in this time. Don't feel so lost, 'cause I know where I'll find you. We're all just fools in love, just waiting, we're all waiting, waiting to love. I don't want another mistake. With these feelings, I know you'll find all this oxygen will take my breath away.